A life that began humbly and ended at the summit of stardom is being remembered today. Family and friends of Frank Sinatra said goodbye to one of the century's most acclaimed performers. Sherry Sylvester is outside the church in Beverly Hills where Sinatra's funeral was held. Sherry.
Susan, the funeral services for Frank Sinatra ended just about a half an hour ago. The funeral itself lasted just about 2 hours and was indeed a mix of old Hollywood and traditional Catholicism. Cardinal Roger Mahoney, the Archbishop of Los Angeles, did preside over the ceremony, and several stars gave their eulogies and spoke at the ceremony as well. Just a little bit ago, about a half an hour ago, Kirk Douglas, Tony Bennett, Gregory Peck, Sidney Poitier, Milton Berle, Wayne Newton, Jack Lemmon. They were some of the stars who lined the steps here at the Good Shepherd Catholic Church in Beverly Hills. It is the only Catholic church here in Beverly Hills. Frank Sinatra's casket was adorned with 1,000 white gardenias. It was brought out of the front of the church, and the pallbearers included Steve Lawrence, Don Rickles, and Tom Dreesen, who had this reaction.
Frank Sinatra Jr. spoke, and he was so eloquent. You know, I say his father loved men of style. Today he would have been so proud of his son because his son had style. It was moving. It really was. It was a lot of laughter. We laughed and we cried and we laughed and we cried, and it just I'll never forget it.
And it was very important for the Hollywood community to say goodbye to Frank Sinatra while he is being laid to rest in Palm Springs. It was quite a tribute to him here in Beverly Hills. Many of his colleagues and friends are a little bit older, and not all of them are in good health. And so this is their neighborhood. Many of them live just right down the street from this church. It was a good opportunity for them to come and pay their final respects to Frank Sinatra. And joining me now live is Mitchell Fink, who was in attendance, and he has some information as far as what actually went on in the service. Mitchell, can you tell me what were some of the defining moments?
Well, Sherry, I think there were a few defining moments. One in particular would be that the feeling in the cathedral was sad and uplifting. In many ways, Frank Sinatra was a contradiction for his entire career. So much of the music was sad and uplifting. The feelings going around the church today were definitely both feelings. Number two, I would say the coming of age of Frank Sinatra's son, Frank Sinatra Jr. He is one of the people who gave a eulogy today, along with Kirk Douglas and Gregory Peck and producer George Schlatter and Robert Marx, the son of Frank Sinatra's wife and now widow Barbara Marx, and Robert Wagner. But I think it was Frank Sinatra Jr. who took his place at the grown-ups table today.
What were some of the things that Frank Sinatra Jr. said that touched you?
Well, he called his father an anomaly throughout his whole life, from his birth, which Frank Sinatra almost didn't survive, right up through his career. It didn't seem as though the remarks were prepared, and I thought that he handled himself brilliantly.
What was the most emotional moment for you?
Well, there are many emotional moments today. The song Put Your Dreams Away was the only piece of music by Frank Sinatra that was played during the 2-hour service, and fittingly, that was his closing song for many years, and until the closing prayers, it was the final piece of music.
Mitchell Fink, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Sherry Sylvester reporting live from the Good Shepherd Catholic Church in Beverly Hills.
Thank you, Sherry. The extent of Frank Sinatra's appeal is evident in a new CNN Time poll about the singer. According to the survey, almost 1 in 5 Americans consider themselves a big fan of Sinatra's. In all, over 60% consider themselves either a fan or a major fan. Interestingly, Sinatra's fan base is strongest in his native Northeast, where fully 70% were supporters, compared with 55% in the South. Survey any record store right now, and you're likely to find intense interest in this musical giant, and that may only increase in the years ahead.
The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
From his more than 200 records to dozens of tape performances on home video and more than 50 movies, Frank Sinatra will live on, and much more is on the way. At the Cannes Film Festival, John Travolta told us he may play Sinatra in a Martin Scorsese film.
Maybe I can bring some of the great memories back. Maybe we can have them again through my transforming another character.
HBO's version of Sinatra's Rat Pack years is already underway, with Ray Liotta portraying Frank, Joe Mantegna as Dean Martin, and Don Cheadle as Sammy Davis Jr.
If all the women in Texas were as ugly as your mama, the Lone Ranger gonna be alone for a long time.
If this were a book, it would be an unauthorized biography. At least one member of the Sinatra family, daughter Tina, says this HBO movie simply isn't true.
The criticism came from her webpage, one of dozens of sites on the internet now dedicated to the memory of Frank Sinatra.
I think that the Sinatra sisters grew up seeing the story and a real story in a way that no one else has seen it. There's stuff about their dad that they've always objected to seeing in print.
That includes 2 newly released books on the Rat Pack. Sinatra fans will also want to check out a book due next year on the life of Harry James, the band leader who first hired Sinatra.
Harry wanted to change his last name from Sinatra to Satin, and he said, no, you take the voice, you got to take my name.
That name also lives on in Frank Sinatra Jr., who often led the orchestra for his dad and still performs those classic Sinatra songs. Daughter Nancy, who once recorded a duet with her father, will release a new album next month called Sheet Music. Record stores report a 5-fold increase in sales of Sinatra's albums since his death, and interest is high in things involving his friends. A company called Global Icons has just gotten the rights to market Sammy Davis Jr.'s likeness.
It could be huge. I mean, you could be talking, $3 to $5 million. If you look at, Marilyn Monroe, I mean, she does around $2 million a year. If you look at a James Dean, he's doing a $3 to $4 million a year.
Television will replay many of Sinatra's films in the next few months, and Warner Brothers is considering a remake of Ocean's 11, one of 3 Rat Pack films. In all, a continuing tribute to the man who called himself simply a saloon singer.
In the opinion of many, the greatest saloon singer ever. We'll be back with more of Showbiz Today in just a moment.
Nobody's loved you, come rain or come shine.
He was a wonderful person to me, and so talented, and I think the world has lost a gem. It makes me very sad.
Mostly I remember his achievement and his humanity and how he was able to touch everybody.
He was an awesome figure. He was an incredible man.
Frank Sinatra is American music at its best.